All right, good morning, everybody, and happy Father's Day to all of the dads who are here, present company included. I think that's how you say that, but to myself too is what I meant to say. But it's good. Hope everybody has a good day today and gets to do whatever it is that you want to do in addition to being here for worship today. I want to open us in a word of prayer, and then we'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 4 today for our Bible class. So let's go to God in prayer. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for our time together as a church family, as students of your word. Lord, we open up your word, and we pray that you would open it to us. Help us to see, help us to glean from this class and from reflecting on this truth. Help us to see ourselves in these stories and what you have for us, and where we can see Jesus. And it's in his name we pray. Amen. I've enjoyed this class for several weeks now. I enjoy the style of the class too, because it's we try to keep it conversational and kind of laid back and low key, and not a lot of plans or whatnot other than walking through the text and reading the text together and making some observations together. So my preparation for the class is to read the text several times and to read in some commentaries and just think about, this story, and then to come and expect to see some things in this text together, and for you to have some comments of your own of what you see here. And so I've been pleased with the engagement, the participation from y'all in previous weeks. So thank you for that, and hopefully we can keep that going. We are kind of at a snail's pace. I think we've picked up just a little bit. It's whatever's just a little faster than a snail, maybe like tortoise speed. So we're really shifting up into second gear maybe here. But we are picking up a little speed as we go along. So we're in chapter 4 finally after several weeks. And there's a couple of interesting things. Let me read chapter 4 first, and then what we'll do is we'll read chapter 4, and then we'll go back and talk about it verse by verse throughout. And then I guess I'll save the interesting things for then, some observations. So I'll let you kind of experience those maybe yourself. And I think that's a hard thing to do, is as you read the Bible, and maybe this is not something we teach very often, but just as you read the Bible, to also be present with yourself, if that's a good way of saying that, of like, what is odd to you, right? Or what surprises do you see, or what's not clear, or what are you feeling as you're reading these things? Some of that those personal experiences, maybe we ought to pull on those threads, and they might reveal things about ourselves, or maybe some interesting questions for the text. All right, so actually let me back up and go to verse 19 of chapter 3 just to get us a little on-ramp, and then I'll either read to the end of verse 11, or we'll see if maybe I'll blow past that and go to the end of the chapter for now, so we'll see. All right, so chapter 3 and verse 19, 1 Samuel 3:19. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again at Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Verse 1 still here. Now Israel went out to battle against the Philistines, and they encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. And the Philistines drew up in line against Israel, and when the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the field of battle. And when the people came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." And so the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. As soon as the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout, so that the earth resounded. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, "What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" And when they learned that the ark of the Lord had come to the camp, the Philistines were afraid. And they said, "A god has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us! Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Be men and fight." And so the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated. And they fled, every man to his home. And there was a very great slaughter, for 30,000 foot soldiers of Israel fell. And the ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. All right, so let's stop there. I won't keep going to the end of the chapter. So there's a lot here to kind of pick up on and observe that I find really, really interesting. So one of the things, and you probably noticed this, is why I started back at the end of chapter 3. That's kind of bizarre in the story, is the whole time for 3 chapters, the story has been setting up this transition from Eli to Samuel, right? And then we looked last week how chapter 3 really brings into the same room and the same time the stories of Eli and Samuel. And so in chapters 1 and 2, you've got Hannah and Eli, and it kind of will go back and forth, and it'll kind of cut over here to Eli, what's going on, and then back over here to Samuel, and then what's going on with Eli, and back over here. And then chapter 3, these are brought together, and so they're brought together so that they can, diverge again, so that, the story will pick up with Samuel. And that's what we're expecting to see here, isn't it? At the end of chapter 3, it says that Samuel, the focus spotlight is now on him. He grew in the Lord. None of his words fell to the ground. I love that phrase. None of the words fell to the ground. That's a prophet, priest of the Lord. Is when he speaks, God's going to back it up, right? He speaks for God. God's word will not, as Isaiah says in chapter 55, return to him empty, right? Will accomplish that which the Lord purposes. And so none of the words fall to the ground. And in verse 20 of chapter 3, all Israel, so everyone knows about Samuel. All Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again at Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. And so it's like the Lord had not been present as much, or what we read of in in verse 1 of chapter 3, the word of the Lord was rare in those days. And so now it's like the fortunes have been reversed. God is back with Samuel, all of this. And even at the beginning of chapter 4, and the word of Samuel came to all Israel. But then what happens? Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So all of a sudden, Samuel drops out again. And actually, Samuel drops out for a few chapters. So it's not for a few chapters that we will even get back to Samuel, which is really unexpected here, because we were just anticipating, okay, more and more of Samuel now. He's going to be in the driver's seat of the story, and that's not the case. Now, maybe that's just, this is how the story went, and so that's why Samuel drops out, because Samuel's not on the field of battle, and Samuel's not, and still this whole business of Eli actually dying and his sons dying, as was predicted in chapter 2, needs to come about still in the story. But do you think is there a message there, kind of a not explicitly stated message, but maybe is there some kind of implicit message here as the story ignores Samuel and what happens in the story? Right? Do y'all see that connection, what I'm trying to hint at there? Do things go well here in chapter 4 for Israel? No, they're defeated twice. The second time worse than the first. And the story has moved from Samuel, even though we're told that all Israel knows about Samuel, Samuel is forgotten. Samuel is not paid a visit. He's not, rung up on the phone and said, what should we do here? And they know about Samuel, but they don't heed the word of Samuel. And what happens to them? They're defeated, right? Yeah, Grant.
Man does not control God.
Okay.
God controls man.
Yeah.
And that's what they were trying to do. We're going to bring God here. He's going to fight us.
That's right. Yeah, we'll come to that in just a moment too. Yeah, we're going to bring God here. Their hubris and their mistake of how they went about doing this on their own. So that's one surprising thing about chapter 4 is we're set up to think we're going to just get into Samuel now, and we're not. It just drops off again back to Eli. Another thing that I find really surprising is this whole political external affairs of Israel, right? Like all of a sudden we are thinking about the Philistines and what's going on in the wider world around. Like the story has sucked us into just a few key people in one tiny place of Shiloh. We've been so focused on, what's going on with Hannah and what's God doing with Samuel and Eli and Hophni and Phinehas and here at Shiloh. And now all of a sudden this story pans really wide out and says, oh, there's this battle going on. The enemies of the people of God are fighting against God, the Philistines. And so it's a little bewildering there to just kind of get, oh yeah, there's this wider world in which this story is set, right? The Philistines are here enacting. And then there's another surprising thing which has to do with the ark, and I think I'll save that for just a little bit. All right, so let's go on through this story just a little bit and get into some of the details. So we're disoriented a little bit because we don't get more of the story of Samuel yet, and also we're thrust into the wider world of the Philistines and Israel's enemies and their battles and all of this. So Israel, the people of God here, go out to battle against the Philistines. They encamp at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek, and the Philistines drew up in line against Israel, so they get ready to fight them. And when the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men. So Israel is sorely defeated. This is kind of the first defeat that prompts the story that's going to follow. So they run up into trouble, and what do they do when they are defeated this first time? What's their response to this? Yeah, their answer is, let's bring the ark down, right?
Their thinking was, we'll bring God to be on our side,
Mm-hmm.
but they brought the ark, not God.
Yeah, that's right. They brought the ark. You're stealing my points here, Don, so just hold on for a second. My punchlines. That's right. They brought the ark and not God. We'll see that in just a moment. So they're defeated, 4,000 men. I mean, I don't know. Just some of these numbers that the Bible gives us of the loss of life is pretty astonishing. Even by today's standards, and you think of the population being much less than a few thousand years ago, is pretty surprising and horrible to think that, here are 4,000 men who perish. And so the people come to the camp, and the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines?" I want to look at the elders here for just a moment. And if you would flip back to, let me find it here, Numbers chapter 11. So this is back in your Bibles toward the beginning. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Numbers chapter 11. And in Numbers, we get a lot of the wanderings in the wilderness of Israel and various stories that are recounted here. But we get a little bit of a description of the elders and their function, of what their function was to be in the people of God. So this is Numbers chapter, let me see if I can find my notes here. Yeah, Numbers chapter 11, verse 16 and 17. And this is in the midst of the people complaining. Surprise, surprise, the people of Israel are in the wilderness complaining about the food and the situation and, what's the word I'm looking for? The accommodations. God's accommodations in the wilderness that they're not fully pleased with. 3 stars out of 5 kind of thing. Or maybe 2. So they're complaining. And but then God says, I'm going to give you some help in managing these people and their needs and all of these problems. And so he says in verse 16, the Lord said to Moses, gather for me 70 men of the elders of Israel. So notice there's the elders of Israel, and there's 70 from within the elders of Israel that are gathered. So there's 70 elders that are going to be gathered, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them take their stand there with you. And I will come down and talk with you there, and I will take some of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you, so that you may not bear it yourself alone. Right. So why does God create this office of elder here in Numbers chapter 11? What's he doing? What's the function of the elders there in those 2 verses? To serve, yeah. That's right. Spread the burden of leadership. So Moses, it reminds me of Exodus 19, Jethro's advice to Moses about you can't judge all these little decisions. You need to, delegate some of this, so on and so forth. But here we have God recognizing a need in the leadership, saying, you can't do all this alone, Moses. You need more help. And so not only does God ask Moses to select these 70, but what does God do to help those 70 rule well? Yeah, that's right. He gives them his Spirit. So it is interesting that it's like God says, I'll give them some of the Spirit, which is like maybe kind of brings to mind. I don't believe this is true of God's Spirit that is bigger than we could ever imagine and sufficient for each of us. Each of us has the Spirit fully. This is a theological question that Mac should answer, but each of us fully has the Spirit of God in us. We don't have like 0.01% of the Spirit, right? God's Spirit is in us. But it sounds here that, Moses has the Spirit, and God's going to kind of, cut the pie to divide that Spirit so that everybody has a little bit. Probably nobody has as much as Moses had, because that would get things out of whack. But they have the Spirit of God. So these are not just good people or even old people or wise people, but now they've got the Spirit of God to help rule the people. So if that's kind of the origins of these elders, that these are recognized in the community as being older and wiser and leaders, but there's also this more formal responsibility that they have to govern and to help with some of the leadership, then how does that shed some light on what's happening here in 1 Samuel chapter 4? The elders are the ones who are kind of making some of the decisions on behalf of the people, right? They're the ones who are there with the armies, and Eli is old and now blind and back at Shiloh, and so they don't have walkie-talkies or whatever to communicate with the front line. So the elders are there, and they're making these decisions, and they come back and huddle up after the defeat, and they're the ones who are supposed to have the Spirit of God, and who are supposed to be able to help rule and manage the people, right? And to do what is right in the eyes of the Lord. So hold your finger there in 1 Samuel 4 and flip over to 1 Samuel 8. And just show you the next time. I don't know if it's actually the next time, but another time where the elders show up. 1 Samuel chapter 8. And we looked at this verse last week with Samuel. So let me start in verse 1 again, because it's such an interesting little text. But Samuel becomes old, and he made his sons judges over Israel. And the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah. they were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after gain, and they took bribes and perverted justice. So last week we talked about the irony of that, of how you have Samuel, who's supposed to be a good guy, and we thought was kind of perfect. Hannah was great, and here's Samuel, who's not Eli and not Hophni and Phinehas, and so Samuel's going to get it right. But the text tells us that his sons go astray from God. So there's some irony there that even Samuel's own home is broken. But then notice what that gives rise to in verse 4. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations." So this is that infamous request for a king that Israel wanted to be like all the other nations. And you notice it comes about because Samuel was old and his sons were unfaithful. And so then and who is it who makes the request? It's not just the people, it's the elders of the people who come and they make this request. So part of it is, I don't know, maybe if Samuel had and his sons were doing better, the request wouldn't have come about. And the elders are the ones who are making the request for the king. And you can almost think of how this might look politically, where the elders are kind of coming together and pooling their influence to lean on Samuel and say, let us have a king. This is the will of the people, and this is what's right for us and good for us. So let's have a king like all the other nations. Yeah, Maddie?
It feels like the grass is always green.
Yeah.
When we were reading 1 Samuel chapter 4, you could tell the Philistines feared God, believed in God, believed. And they were they're bringing God here, oh no. And then now, wherever you were at, I didn't change mine. They're well, we want to be king.
Yeah.
It's just,
That's right.
I wanted to say that earlier, and then you said that, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, it's reverse.
Yeah. Maddie says the grass is always greener. Or another way to say that is sometimes the people of God are chronic complainers. Now, this church wouldn't know anything about that. Just people that gripe about everything, every decision that's made, nothing. It's a lose, lose, lose. To paraphrase Michael Scott, a lose, lose, lose. Thanks, Stephen, if you didn't even chuckle at that. I thought you'd appreciate that reference. But yeah, lose, lose, lose. I mean, chronic complainers, nothing's right. We see that back in the wilderness. And we just see that time and again with the people of God. They want what they want. And even the ones like the elders who should have known better, who should have had the foresight to see and to know what was right and what would be good, lack that. And so, here's what they do. Back to 1 Samuel chapter 4 here. They come back into the camp, and the elders of Israel are there, and says, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines?" Now you notice, who do they attribute the defeat to? God, right? Something right about that they recognize, the defeat is not just, well, our tactics were wrong today, or we should have, flanked them on the right instead of the left, or I don't know, whatever they would have decided to do. But they say, no, it was the Lord who defeated us. There's something right about that. They see the hand of God in this, that God is making some kind of statement or not showing up, or even more active than just letting this happen. God did this. So something right about that, but maybe also something a little unfaithful there, right? I'll say blasphemous, but just to point the finger at God rather than at themselves and say, why has God done this? So then they're, groping around in the dark for an answer here. And then this is what they come up with. "Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh. that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies. Okay, so that's their answer. Yes, sir.
Well, it's interesting that even though everybody knew that Samuel had the word of the Lord in him,
Yeah.
that nobody asked.
That's right.
There was no, what do you want us to do? What should we do? How should we do it?
That's right.
What is God? They're not asking.
That's right.
They're deciding for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that, and Samuel still may be young at this point, and their
Right.
experience with Eli, again,
Yeah.
is guiding talking to him.
Yeah.
So, they may not have the confidence in Samuel,
Right.
but in any case, they didn't ask.
Yeah, that's right. Asking, I mean, just to make that real practical, that point, how often do we fail to seek guidance from those around us who are wiser than we are, who have the Spirit of God? We say, I'll just do this on my own. I think I know better. So I tell a little story. Yesterday, my friend does this a golf outing every year. Any golfers in the room here? Anybody like to golf? Just me, huh? All right. I'm actually really terrible, but I find it's really fun. But we were on a 4-man scramble yesterday with my friend Harrison. And I'm not very good. But I was putting a long putt, and he was behind me and saying, do you want me to talk you through this? So, where I was, I said, no, I'm feeling it. I'm going to be fine. Don't talk to me. And so then I hit this long putt, and it was way off and way short. And he didn't say a word, but I thought, yeah, it probably would have been better to talk that over because, what are you seeing? Is it going to slope left or right, or how's it going to play, that kind of thing? And I thought I knew better, so I didn't need to, trust his eyes behind me and where I was lining up and that kind of thing. But we do that kind of thing all the time, right, where we don't ask for help. We don't go to someone and say, what do you think about this? But I also think, your last name's Crossman? Is that right? I got it. Yes. And your first name is? Andrew. Okay, great. It was good to meet you last week, and I'm sorry I forgot your name. But one of the things, too, that I think one of the things that it shows is not just like they did not ask Samuel. It seems from the story, it's like that's the guy you should have asked, is Samuel. What should we do here? He's the one who God is with and has the Spirit of God and speaking for God. But I think it also shows just how long it's been since things have worked properly in Israel, right? Where because of Eli and his house and the ways that the Lord has not been there, I mean, nobody's muscle memories are telling them, oh, we're in trouble. We ought to go seek the Lord at Shiloh and go ask the priest or the prophet, because they've been so out of practice. They've just had such poor leadership for so long that even if they kind of knew that, they don't have that natural reaction to say, yeah, that's where we need to go and ask for help there. I think for me, it shows how broken the entire community is, that they're not doing what they need to do, and that's going to take time for that to heal. Yes, sir.
The older I get, the smarter my dad was.
Yeah, that's right. And the smarter that you're getting too, probably. But yeah, I hear that of teenagers. But does it keep on after teenage years? Like your dad is a hero and brilliant for the first 11 years of your life, and then your parents become kind of the dumbest people for about 8 years, and then they become, brilliant again. Is that how it works? Something like that.
I think that's depends.
Paraphrase.
Right. I think that's
Yeah.
the
That's how it's supposed to be. But yeah, the older that we get, we realize, those who were older than us had a lot of wisdom, and it made sense why they did what they did, why they didn't do what they didn't do. So yeah, thank y'all for your comments here. So they say though, and this is to Don and Grant's point. Notice the language here of verse 3. So they're going to come up with this brilliant plan of the Lord has done this, so how do we fix that problem? How do we help the Lord to not defeat us, but to win for us? And their answer is, well, let's go get the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. And notice that it says, it's not just the Ark of the Lord, but it's the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, right? There's emphasis there on the covenant and the promise of God. That these are the people who are supposed to be in covenant with God, and God is supposed to be in covenant with the people. And so God's going to have their back because they're obligated to do that, right? And then notice, though, that they say, let me read this and just notice, I'm reading from the ESV. I know translations are slightly different, but just notice if you hear me misread this verse, how you hear me misread it. Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that he may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies. How did I misread it? Did anybody catch it? Yeah, it. Well, they do not say that God would come among us. They say that it would come among us. Not that God is going to be present to win this battle for us, but that this box, this thing that's supposed to be magical, is going to work to defeat their hope is in this thing. It's still in this thing that they're going to bring, and not in God, who's going to show up and win their victory. Yes. That's right. That's right. Wow. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Right.
Mankind inherently is
That's right. That John Calvin said that. Yeah.
we're in the same shape that they were in back then.
That's right. Yeah, John Calvin said the human heart is a factory of idols, and so even we know this. Idols, we tend to think idols are demonic, they're bad things, but so often they're good things that we make ultimate things, like our work or our money or our children or our country or whatever it is, that they're good things, the Ark of the Covenant, that then kind of replaces God, or we just lose sight of the fact that it's not something or some place or some person that saves us. It's God who saves us. And even today, we can't lose sight of that. If you want to read more about the Ark of the Covenant, a good place to look is Exodus 25. And I'll just read a verse there. The descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant are various. You can find those in various places. But in Exodus 25, as Moses is being instructed on the tabernacle and such, the Ark of the Covenant is described. And you'll notice in verse 22, Exodus 25:22, God says, there I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, which is there on the Ark of the Covenant, and between the two cherubim that are on the Ark of the Testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel. And so God is saying there's this location where you can bank on my presence, where I'm going to meet you in this place, and there we will meet. So there's something right about them knowing God has been and had promised to be present here at this place on this thing, but they misuse it, and they lose sight of the fact that it's not this thing that has ever saved them, but it's God. So yeah, it, not he, which is just a really interesting way of one of those Freudian slips, we might say, or something that, they say something that betrays their lack of trust in God. So it's not in God, not he. All right, so verse 4, the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from there the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies, the Lord of many, Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim. There we go. The two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. I'm not sure if maybe they're the ones who brought the Ark of the Covenant to the battle, because it does single them out. But, this is almost a foreshadowing of sorts we learned about in high school. You remember foreshadowing? But I don't know if that's the right term technically here, because we already know what's been predicted of Hophni and Phinehas, right? That what's going to happen to them. They're going to die, right? That's going to be the sign that God has withdrawn his presence from Eli and his rule over the people. And so when the text names them again, what does that make us think? It's coming. That's right. They're about to get theirs. So this is not good. You don't want to be named in the text after, your death has been predicted. And so yeah, there you go. So yeah, they're in trouble. They've been named, but they're there with the covenant of God. So it's just really this how the story unfolds is really so interesting to me. So verse 5, as soon as the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout. So they have not been feeling good because they were defeated. They lost 4,000 and things were not good. They come up with this plan. What are we going to do? Here's a Hail Mary. And so they bring the Ark of the Covenant into the camp, and Israel's, their mood is completely reversed, and they give a mighty shout. They are thrilled. They are confident that like the Lord, the Ark of the Covenant is here. And just think for a moment, I'm going to test my own Old Testament knowledge here, which may be lacking in many ways. Has the Ark of the Covenant suffered defeat up to this point? Like, has the Ark of the Covenant been captured or been, suffered hail damage or anything like that up to now? No, it's been fine. It's been what God has promised it to be in the house of the Lord. So this is what happens here is pretty unthinkable. They didn't realize that, the fact that the ark might be captured was something that no one saw coming. And so, but they think this thing is going to save them. Notice the Philistines' reaction, which I find really interesting to hear this reflected in the text. The Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, so they're there still drawn up in battle, some ways away from them, but they can hear what's going on in the camp. And they hear this shouting, and they said, what does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean? And they learned, somehow they learned, that the Ark of the Covenant the Ark of the Lord, it doesn't say covenant, it says the Ark of the Lord had come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid. So this, really raucous sound, loud cheering or whatever it was that sent this trembling through the Philistines' camp. And then they learned, okay, this is why, because there's the Ark of the Covenant that's there. This is like their magical thing. And they say, woe to us, for nothing like this has happened to us before. Woe to us. So this just repetitive here to really to let it sink in for us that they are really disturbed by this. The Philistines are afraid, which is setting us up to think, oh yeah, the Philistines, they're going to be defeated. Look how afraid they are. Look how this is working actually. They're afraid and God's going to show up and defeat the Philistines. And so we're kind of set up to think, buy in with the Philistines, that this is what's going to happen. Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? So this is not the Israelites speaking. This is the Philistines speaking. So do you hear how is their theology off at all? How is it off? Right? These are not faithful Bible reading Jews. These are Philistines. How's it off? What do they say? Yeah, multiple gods. So they're polytheists. So they just think, well, the Israel's got a bunch of gods. And so that's what's going on here. They don't understand that there is just one God. And so that's one way their theology is off. These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. That also seems a little off, doesn't it? The plagues on the Egyptians. But I don't think the Egyptians were in the wilderness, were they? So, I don't know. The story seems a little convoluted there.
In the wilderness, they had the snakes.
Yes.
And they had, without food.
Yeah. Well, the Israelites, right? The Israelites were struck by some plagues from God, and then some of the other nations. But the Egyptians, I don't think they made it through the Red Sea, right? They were stopped. there. So yeah, but the Egyptians, they do suffer plagues. We know about the 10 plagues in the wilderness. Okay, so their theology, it's a little telling that they know a little bit, but they don't know it very well. And so they say there's multiple gods and all of this. The story's a little bit wrong, but still they know to fear. And there's more irony that maybe they have more fear than the people of Israel had fear to bring the Ark of the Covenant into their camp. They thought, this is only a good thing for us. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest ye become slaves of the Hebrews as they have been to you. Be men and fight. And I guess I don't really know. That phrase is really interesting. That as they have been to you. Whether the Israelites have ever been slaves to the Philistines, or in what ways the Israelites have been slaves to the Philistines before, right?
Remember when Samson,
Ah, yes. Yeah, in the book of Judges, right?
to Jewish Israel, they returned him to Philistines because they said the Philistines ruled over us.
Yeah, okay. Very good. That's right, yeah. So we do in the book of Judges see the Philistines ruling over and apparently enslaving at least some of the people, right? And some of the people. All right. Was that your comment too, sir?
Yeah, I was just, thinking that how the Philistines would come in and just take it. So it's not like they were slaves in the same vein as they were in Egypt.
Right,
But,
right.
if you're living in fear, you have to turn over half your stuff to the evil overlords and battle yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it may not be occupying territory in the same sort of way, but still an enemy.
I understand the Philistines had the coastal plains, and Israel was forced up
Yes,
the mountains,
yes.
which is not real good farming, as I understand.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, the Philistines, the sea peoples, there's been some work done on like where do they come from, who are they? And I think most scholars that I've read say they come somewhere from the sea. They land there in there's 5 great cities of the Philistines, the Pentapolis that they call it, but there's sea peoples that end up dwelling right there on, as you mentioned, right by the sea, and then they afflict the people of Israel constantly. Yeah, Mark.
Just to put a historical.
Oh, sorry. Other Mark. Yeah.
The Philistines are in the Gaza Strip. That's, this conflict has been going on. What year was Samuel? What year was Samuel the judge over Israel? What was it about?
That was on one of the 1,000. Yeah, a little before 1,000. On one of those handouts I gave.
And you see that the Philistines drew up at Aphek. Aphek is still in existence in southern Israel. Israel now owns Ashdod and Ashkelon. And so the Gaza Strip and the conflict between the Palestinian people and Israel has been going on for 5,000
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And it continues to this day. I mean, so at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you have to kind of put a spin on it and look at, what's happening.
Sure. Yeah, not a lot of peace in that area of the world through history. Well, let's end on verse 10 and 11 just quickly as we're out of time. So the Philistines fought and Israel was defeated. So again, set up to think, oh, the ark is there. Even the Philistines are afraid. And then we read that Israel's defeated. Every man fled to his home. So that is not back to camp to retreat and regroup, right? But they went home. I mean, it was over. The fat lady had sung, as they say. And there was a very great slaughter. And then not 4,000, but how many? 30,000 soldiers died. So the slaughter was even greater, even after the people had brought the Ark of the Covenant of God. And the Ark of God was captured. The unthinkable happened. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. And then we'll pick up next week in verse 12, where Eli gets this news and to see to read about his final demise. So thank you all for your participation this morning. I enjoy it. Enjoy your presence and your comments, and God bless you.